Greetings. We are Mothers Against the War from Puerto Rico. I had a son in Iraq. He joined the military in the year 2001. At that time, there were no wars. I certainly warned him that he should not join the military. Unfortunately, he didn't listen to me. He listened to the recruiter who damaged his life for good. So he was an unemployed student. He had just finished school and he owed $8,000 in student loans at the university, from the university. So the bank started harassing him and he said, I am joining the military because they promised to cancel my debt. That was terrible. It was like a death sentence to me. Mothers Against the War was started by me and other good people from Puerto Rico on May 1st, 2003, while my son was fighting in Iraq. Why? Because it is based on the needs of the good men and women who joined the military because of poverty, because of unemployment, because they listen to the dreams that the recruiters promise, and those dreams become nightmare. So since the year 2003, Mothers Against the War have launched different campaigns. First, we don't want youngsters to find an option in the military. So we are against recruitment. So we go to schools, we go to the universities, we go to street fairs, such as las fiestas de la calle San Sebastián in Old San Juan. Every January, we're there with our t-shirts. We sell our t-shirts, little things, like visors and stuff like that, because we want to show to the world the work that we do. In other words, we are not, we say quincalleros in Spanish, meaning that we're not selling stuff just for the sake of selling. We do it because it's our means for education. We also have another campaign, and that is that we urge military men and women to become conscientious objectors. Conscientious objectors means that they can file a statement with the military, and it's totally legal. But guess what? The military doesn't inform them about it. And those that choose to become conscientious objectors status, some of them are harassed. There's group pressure against it, and it's an impediment. Now, conscientious objection became part of the military norms and procedures, because after the Second World War, after the Nuremberg court hearings, all the Allied countries decided to include the conscientious objector as part of their norms and regulations, because the military men and women have a conscience, and they can choose to become ethical, or they can choose to just follow orders indiscriminately and kill other human beings. So that's one of our biggest campaigns. The other thing that we do, we have many missions. One of them also is that we strive for the veterans to obtain the health services that they are entitled to have at the VA. And much of the time, it doesn't happen. There's only one veterans hospital here in Puerto Rico that services more than 150,000 veterans from Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, I mean, it's called Caribbean VA. So a veteran that comes from the southern portion of the island, that is about an hour and a half, or 2 hours, or 3 hours, from the west coast of Puerto Rico. Uh, they have to go to a hospital. If they have to go to a hospital, there's the only hospital that they can attend. We also oppose the death penalty. We also, and we have been active in Puerto Rico against the death penalty when the federal court here has tried to institute it. And interestingly, the Puerto Rican Constitution specifically states that the death penalty is banned in Puerto Rico. But since Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States since 1898, then the death penalty could be used in Puerto Rico. And they have tried it, but the Puerto Rican jurors never accepted. It's interesting. Psychologically, it's very interesting. So we have our hearts with Palestine, with Syria, with Lebanon, and with all other countries that are being subjected to wars. You know, because we understand that the real reasons why the United States and Israel, as well as their allies, are in Palestine and the Lebanon is because they want to usurp, they want to take the oil reserves and the natural gas that is so huge in Palestine. And they also want to have control of the water, which is a precious commodity in that part of the world. Unfortunately, the military industrial complex dictates much of the policies and procedures that the United States engages in. As you are aware, IPAC is a lobbyist organization from Israel that buys conscience of the congressmen. So Congress is very definitely in favor. The whole United States government is in favor. Now, what is the relationship between Puerto Rico and Palestine? Why so much commitment to Palestine? Our support for Palestine is unconditional, as our support for the liberation of Puerto Rico is also unconditional. Puerto Rico in 1950 had 42% of our women sterilized, even against their consent. There was this medical doctor, Dr. Arthur Rhodes, who came to Puerto Rico, and he was trying to impose a genocide on us, an extermination of our people. He decided to place birth control clinics all over the island at a time when the birth control was prohibited in the United States. So it was a clear intent to exterminate our population. Actually, I have a little anecdote. I went to have to a birth control clinic in the 70s in Puerto Rico, and the nurse very enthusiastically told me, "Do you want to participate in a medical study? It's very important. You will have free medical clinics, checkups every week. In exchange, you will be given free pills, preconceptive pills." I was aware of the extermination that had tried to occur. So I said no. I even wrote an article for the newspaper on it. It was published in Claridad. So in Palestine, as you are aware, there's going on a genocide. Over 43,000 Palestinians have been killed, 70% of them children, women, and people that are seniors. It's terrible, the genocide there. And it is suspected that over 100,000 people may be also dying because of the diseases and 44,000 tons of rubble are right now in Palestine, and thousands of people are under the rubble. So there's a parallel between Palestine and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States, as Palestine is a colony of Israel. And there's another similarity. Ecocide is an intent of the superpowers, imperialist countries, to control nature, to exterminate life so that it is uninhabitable, not only for humans, but also for animals and all creatures. So in Puerto Rico, the military tested serious parts of our country. The only Puerto Rican bosque tropical forest, El Yunque, was bombarded with Agent Orange before it was placed in Vietnam. It was horrible. And as you are aware, also in Culebras and in Vieques, they tested different pesticides and herbicides, and they have not cleaned. So ecocide, that's another similarity between Palestine and Puerto Rico. Let's talk a little bit about displacement. Vieques is a small municipality in the southeast portion of Puerto Rico. It's another island. Anyway, in Vieques, the U.S. Marine came in the 50s and displaced 2/3 of the population to the eastern and the western portion of Vieques. As you're aware that in 1948, in order for the Zionist state of Israel to become a state, they displaced 77% of the Palestinians from the center of Palestine to the eastern and western portions of Palestine. So displacement also occurred. In Puerto Rico, right now, there are some laws, law 22, 20, and 60. And those laws that came under the governorship of the pro-statehood Governor Luis Fortuño allows millionaires to settle here in the island and without paying any taxes. And so a lot of good people and bad people have come, and they have power, the power of money, and they're displacing. They're gentrifying different, gentrification is occurring in Puerto Rico as well. That's also displacement. Anyway, we have had prisoners, political prisoners, those that have resisted. Resistance is another characteristic of our people that is very similar to the Palestinian. Ever since they invaded us in 1898 and then imposed on us the US citizenship in 1917, a lot of Puerto Ricans resisted that imposition. Unfortunately, they were banned from education, from jobs, from schools, they couldn't vote. So they became pariahs in their own country. It is terrible that happened, but it's a sign of resistance. When they imposed the US citizenship, they also imposed the military service, which was obligatory at that time. And so thousands of Puerto Ricans had to fight in US wars, starting with the First World War, going all the way to Vietnam, Iraq. This is terrible. So the resistance is there because many Puerto Ricans have decided that they were not going to join the military. So I participated with a bunch of youngsters during the Vietnam era in order to prevent Puerto Ricans from joining the military. So resistance is another feature that allows us to feel that Palestina and Puerto Rico are united in many ways. The culture. I wanted to express myself pertaining also the uh, good vibes that we feel for the American people. Let me tell you, we are not against the Americans as we are not against the Israelites. What we want is for Puerto Rico to be respected as a nation. We have our own culture, we have our own language. True, it is a language inherited by the Spanish colonialism, but still, it's the language that we have today that incorporates also slangs, words from the African and the Indian heritage. Anyway, I just wanted to say that we welcome the Americans that join us in our struggle for independence, for our struggle in all areas of liberation. And we deeply thank Dr. Susanna Hodgson for this invitation that we may be able to speak with you and to embrace you, at least virtually. So we also want to thank the Puerto Ricans that joined us in this little conversation, which is Lourdes, attorney Lourdes Sayas. We also goes to the weekly picket lines that we have in front of the the Israeli consulate in Puerto Rico. We also want to acknowledge the presence of Wilfrido Ortiz. He is a Puerto Rican cinematographer, and we also appreciate his presence every Tuesday. Let me tell you a little bit about what we do every Tuesday. For the past year, since the 31st of October of the year 2023, we have had weekly picket lines in front of the Israeli consulate in San Juan. We have even also tried to visit the consul, David Efron, and we told them that he is welcome on a personal level, but it is not to our liking that he represents the Zionist genocidal state of Israel. So these are some of the pictures that Dr. Susanna Hodgson has taken of the activities in which we have had participated. For instance, we also, the day that Netanyahu in July spoke at the United Nations, we decided to make this demonstration that you are looking in this video in front of the federal court building in Old San Juan. We also went to a facility in San Juan, which is the Jewish Holocaust Memorial. At the Jewish Holocaust Memorial, we placed flowers for the Jewish victims of there we are. We visited the Holocaust with love in our hearts. We placed flowers honoring the victims of the Jewish Holocaust, but also serving it as a reminder that what is happening today in Palestine is a genocide. It is also a Holocaust. So thank you so much for listening. This has been a very enlightening activity. And if anybody has something to add or a question, we'll be more than willing to answer it.
Yeah, this is really, really great. Thank you so much for. I didn't know about the sterilization of Puerto Rican women. Um, Most of my information about uh, Puerto Rican history has really come from my weekly visits to the art museum, Museo de Arte. And as we know, artists tell the truth in ways that other people cannot. And I, yeah.
Okay, I promise to give you an English speaking book on Puerto Rican history.
Well, my mother was Irish, and and her paternal line was Quaker. So my mother essentially came from the Quaker tradition since 1690. Um,
Oh,
and Quakers, as you know, we don't take sides in conflicts because we don't want conflicts. Our side is with the victim always, the ones that are suffering. And what you just said too, I mean, that's right. We don't hate Israel. We don't want Israel to vanish or go away. We don't want the Israelis just to be sent off into the desert or whatever. We just want whatever's happening to stop. And of course it's not just in Palestine or in Lebanon. Things are all over the world. Things are pretty awful. But at the moment, because what's so horrific, what's going on in Palestine, it's got our attention. But the my main issue with Palestine is why I was not paying attention to it 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. That's pretty upsetting. But I know plenty of other people were. Quakers have been in Palestine since 1873. There are two Quaker schools. One is in Lebanon and one is in Ramallah in Israel. And they
wow.
sit and American Friends Service Committee has been on the ground since in Palestine since 1917 when it started. So, but what you're doing is just, can you talk about why I mean, you're extraordinary. You've come up with this line of action. I mean, it's one thing being upset that something's happening, but actually doing something about it is extraordinary. And that places you up with the angels, which is really, really, really
Don't say
terrific.
that about me. I become very, very embarrassed. You
No, well,
know, because
don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. Just explain why you care. Why do you care? I mean, it's
because I
fabulous
could
that you
not
do.
not care. I could not care. If I were to stop being who I am or what I do, I would deny my essence. You know, um, we say tenderness is the solidarity of nations. Where we come from is a place of love. We are not in any way against the persons. We are for the persons. And my formation comes from the theology of liberation in the 70s. I come from a Catholic background. And in the 60s and 70s, I was very young. And we had a very strong liberation theology movement in Puerto Rico, as well as in Latin America.
Yeah.
Gustavo, um, uh, oh, I forgot his last name, Mendes, in Gustavo Guterres from Brazil. He was a theologian priest, and he wrote very much um, the theory of liberation in the theology, because in Puerto Rico we had a lot of priests that embraced that ideology, especially the Jesuits. And in the University of Puerto Rico, there was a Catholic chapel. and I went to mass every day. And the theology of liberation was where it started there, you know. The other concept is ecumenism. Ecumenism, and it embraces people of all religions, even atheists. I don't care. They become humanities, um, they struggle for the humanity of the people. And that's where we come from in Mothers Against the War. And so I have a tradition in my life of doing something about stuff. Like, for instance, during the Vietnam War, that I was going to that church that I was talking to you about, there was an organization that was formed. It was CRASMO, a Committee for the Resistance Against Military Obligation, for the youngsters to sign up. And they named me the person in charge of propaganda. I was 17 years old. And there I was, printing leaflets, talking to youngsters. And we organized buses that went to a small town in Puerto Rico called Lares, where in the 1868, the Puerto Ricans that wanted to free themselves from Spain organized a revolution, a revolt. And so we went there, tens of buses from all over Puerto Rico of youngsters, male men, wanted to give in to give away their what do you call, the military papers. They didn't want to go. The other day I was walking in Old San Juan, and there came a man my age, and he says, "You saved my life." And I thought, me? How? I don't recall. And he said, "Yeah. What, did you study at the University of Puerto Rico?" Yes. Remember, I was in my 60s when I talked to him. And he goes, "I was wearing my ROTC uniform, and you asked me if I could join you, if you could join me having lunch." I said yes. And you spoke to me in a nice way against the ROTC, and I didn't sign up for the ROTC, and you saved my life, because many of the youngsters that went to Vietnam from my unit came crazy, or in they were dead.
Yeah.
So, and this is who I am. When I was working at my doctorate from UCLA in LA, I worked with Quakers
Yes.
in Los Angeles.
Yes. Yes.
I went to their seminars. I participated in many of their activities. And, I think we are all one humanity. And the other ideological influence that I've had is Noam Chomsky, which is, as you're aware, an intellectual that advertises, he's encourages people to engage in actions to eliminate poverty, to enhance, to better the environment, etc. So this is who I am.
Wow. That's great. Can we have some comment from Lourdes or Wilfrida? It would be very nice, since you've been a friend of hers for you're muted, but if you can, yeah.
I was saying that Sonia said it all. I have nothing to add. She made all the explanations that were to be done.
But you've known her for a very long time.
I met her when we were against the war in Iraq. Then I lost contact with her until now. The Palestinians now reunited us. And I think that it's very important to attend every Tuesday because we are not Palestinians, but we are brothers. So we have to be there just for solidarity. And that's why I go there.
Wilfredo, you have something to say?
Yeah, I met Sonia, Madres Contra la Guerra, about less than a year ago. I always wanted to join them, but before I was telling her that the other day, before we didn't have social media,
Right.
so it. That easy. So now with what happened last year with Palestine, my wife told me, you know what, Madres Contra la Guerra has a picket every Tuesday. So that's when I started to go and finally join them, and it's been amazing for me because I'm a pacifist. I have always been an activist for peace, and I really feel. I told her that some time ago. I don't remember. Maybe a couple of weeks ago. I feel accepted because I'm not pro-independence. I've told her that. So, but I feel accepted and welcomed, and like that I can be myself also uh, in the group. So I I actually talking about Quakers. I did civil disobedience in Vieques also in the fight against the Navy here. I went to prison with a Quaker that came from the U.S. And I know Quakers came also for the fight against the Navy in Culebras, which is the other island that was occupied by the Navy. So that's for me it's also a spiritual thing, to believe and fight for peace and justice. And what is happening in Palestine is horrific. It really breaks my heart because it's been going on for more than 70 years. Um, I feel so sad that our governments and the media are complicit in the narrative pushed by the Israeli government. So that's why I make videos of Sonia and Mohammad, the the Puerto Rican Palestine that we have in the pickets, and I upload them to a web page that I have called Puerto Rico con Palestina,
Yeah.
which you all can visit, and you will see
Yeah.
the people from Madres Contra la Guerra, Sonia, and the group in not only in the picket lines in the consulate of Israel, also in other places. So I encourage you to go there and see the videos. It's also in the I tag Madres Contra la Guerra, so you can see them in their social media also. So I try to record that because that way we can reach more people. Um, Sonia's videos, sometimes almost 3,000 people see them, and a lot of them are from Mexico,
Yeah.
Europe, South Africa, everywhere. I see the statistics
Yeah.
where people are watching, and it's incredible. So I think that this is very important what Madres Contra la Guerra and Dr. Sonia is doing and the rest of the group. It is important to be present there and to be part of this international fight against this horrible crime that is being committed against the Palestinian people. So that
We have a poet here, Sandra Green, who comes to Fridays at Fetterman, and she's a Quaker, and she's Jewish. And
Mhm.
can you say something, Sandy? Oh, you're muted.
I couldn't get on my computer. I didn't have the link, so I'm on my phone.
Okay,
So
sorry.
it's a bit challenging to be talking. I am a Jewish Quaker. I became Quaker in 2006 when Israel invaded Lebanon then, and I've been at it ever since. I did a video for the Quakers. I don't know if Susanna can share that. It's a Quakers Speak video that I made. It's very, very, very challenging to be Jewish here right now. And, you know, to give you a bit of an insight as to what that's about, I have 3 children. One of my daughters, whose husband's father is a survivor. She is totally on the other track, and we haven't spoken in a year. And with her went my 3 grandsons, who I practically raised. So there has been a lot of pain in doing this work. But I'll say what Sonia said, you know, I couldn't not do it. I mean, it's been my leading, and I just could not do it, do the work. And so I'm kind of coming out as much as I can. I did this thing for Quaker Speak. I did a piece at Fetterman's. That's where I met Susanna a couple of weeks ago. And I read a couple poems, but it was on Yom Kippur, and if you know what that is, it's the holiest day of the Jewish year. It's a fast day. It's a day where Jews say atonement for the sins that they've committed against man and those against God. And so it's a day of atonement. So I read the poems that day, and I felt like I was saying atonement for all my people. So this has been a very personal, deep fight. On a more positive note about that, when I was into this in 2006, there were a handful of people, Jews, that were doing it. And now there is tremendous solidarity. Jewish Voices for Peace is amazing. These young people are absolutely amazing. And there are other organizations. So if there is hope in this tragedy, it's that it's been uncovered. You can't put the genie back in the bottle after this year. And where that leads, I don't know, but it's been awful to watch. And I've become, you know, more educated. I was not that educated. I thought I was, but I wasn't that educated. Because I'm really aware of how this is settler colonization, and it's an American-Israeli war. And the Jews are fighting it, and which is going to only add to anti-Semitism. It's really pretty bleak. And right now, we have 2 more days till our election. And if one thing is bleak, the thought of that election is even more bleak. Because if he gets in, any kind of dissent is going to be squashed even more than it's been. I mean, it's like I really feel like I would want to leave this country. This country right now has, I'm really angry at this country. I'm just so angry at this country. It's like it's shown its true face. It's not that I hadn't seen it. I'm old, but the complicity, the hypocrisy, and this business with anti-Semitism is really very upsetting.
Yeah, I feel betrayed. It's interesting because in 2008, when Obama was elected, it's like, oh, great, everything's been solved. We don't have racism anymore. We don't have, and then, my gosh, how wrong we were. How wrong we were. In 2008, I became an American citizen. So I just thought, yes, that's a good thing. America's fixed itself. I mean, I remember the Vietnam War and everything before that. Goodness gracious. Yeah. Dear me. So what I'd like to know, Dr. Sonia, is what are your plans for the rally to continue? And what are your plans for the future? And what else do you have going on down the pike? Because there's plenty of things to protest.
Well, we have, like I said earlier, several campaigns. Right now, we have, according to our schedule, we continue with the picket lines for Palestina. And also, in November, we also commemorate activity. We do activities for the veterans.
Yes,
With
absolutely.
company veterans, we go to the hospital with them.
Good.
And we expose how the hospital is not happening, it's not taking care of them accurately. The other campaign that we have is we have a Puerto Rican veteran. He was a surgeon that went to Iraq and Afghanistan. His name is Christian Gonzalez, and is being tried at the Arecibo Tribunal Court because he killed his father in the year 2022 because he has developed paranoid schizophrenia,
Oh boy.
post-traumatic stress disorder, and he had a conflict with his father in any common day on the 30th of May of the year 2022. And the way he resolved the conflict was he grabbed the gun and killed his father, something that he regrets. But he told his mother told me that he thought his father was going to kill him. One of those mental states where the veterans think that they are in the combat zones and they're not. So we are accompanying his mother, Romilda, we go with her to the tribunal and to the courts, and we were able to get a forensic psychiatrist that testified on behalf of Christian, explaining the situation. So there are always our participation in schools, in universities. We are scheduled to attend several high schools this coming in November. For instance, on the 14th of November, I'm going to one in San Juan. We are going to one in Comerío, which is a small town. And one of the mothers from Ponce is going to one in Ponce. It's an ongoing, we are like little ants. We work diligently and in cooperation. We are not divided in hierarchy. We are together. And we also have men in our group. It's not only women. We have fathers, we have families, we have friends. We don't discriminate. We are for peace. We never ask anybody whether they are Jewish, atheists, what is their religion, what is the political status that they want for Puerto Rico. That's totally secondary to our common goal, which is to attain peace with justice. So, it's ongoing.
We have the annual Veterans Day March in Philadelphia next Sunday, and I always go there. I've been associated with a minority veterans museum that's run by a physician in Germantown. And her father was a veteran. And it's an amazing place. There are two schools in Philadelphia that lost the most people in the Vietnam War. One school had 67 members of the school killed in Vietnam, and the other had like 60 something. I mean, the highest death toll from any schools in the United States were both in Philadelphia, and the survivors always come on the parade, and it's very, very sad. But yeah.
So they have an annual parade.
Philadelphia has for about 10 years. They had an annual parade, but the museum that I'm associated with, we always go in the parade, which is wave flags and all sorts of things. It's very nice. It's a very nice day for the veterans because they all sort of get together and talk. But of course, that's what the issue has always been: poverty. I mean, if you have no choice and you don't have a whole lot of money, the military is exactly where you can get a job. And so a lot of people who join the military are poor and they haven't had another opportunity. And it can become a meat grinder. I mean, we can see what's happening in Russia at the moment. It's absolutely a terrible situation. And of course, the situation in Ukraine is just appalling. But so I really like what you're doing. My mother was a physician in the Veterans Administration in Sydney, and during the Vietnam War. And I can remember she was doing medical examinations of young men, and she'd say, "Do you want to go in?" And if they said no, she'd find something. That was her. That was her little resistance.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm working on is a book. I have about 117 pages so far, and it is like testimonies of about Mothers Against the War, from mothers, fathers, from veterans, from active military men and women. And so I'm working on it. I have about 2/3 of the book already written. I'm going to get some pictures in it. And, interestingly, I was looking at how can I evidence that I participated in a hunger strike against the Vietnam War in 1969 at the University of Puerto Rico. So I talked to a friend who is a librarian, and he was able to get me a copy of the newspaper that had the names of the last 12 people that lasted the 38 days in the hunger strike. And my name is there.
38 days.
Yes. There was a group and we wanted the ROTC to get out of the campus. And we had a bunch of doctors giving us electrolytes and lemon juice every hour.
What kept you alive? 38 days, yes.
Unfortunately, we were not able to get the ROTC out of the campus by pacifist means. The way that it was accomplished was that after the hunger strike, another group, because I belong to Rescate, which was an organizational group that believed in pacifism. But there was another group that was more actively oriented, and they threw stones and Molotov bombs to the ROTC, and that was horrible. A lot of people were injured, and 3 people were killed. That was on the 11th of March of the year 1971. And that's why they decided to get the ROTC out of the campus of the University of Puerto Rico. Interesting, huh?
Oh my gosh. So you've been fighting for a very long time. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I became a Quaker over the Iraq War because I was going to the Episcopal Church with my three sons, and the priest got up in the pulpit on the day we started bombing Iraq in 1991. And I went, and he was saying, "This is great." And I went over to him afterwards. And I said, "They're killing people. How's that great?" He said, "Oh, they're not human." And I
Wow.
said, "I am in the wrong church." So I walked across the street with my sons, and the next Sunday we went to the Quaker. I said,
Good for you.
I cannot be in the Episcopal Church anymore. Now, clearly that's not all Episcopal. The fact that that was tolerated
Right,
was pretty
right.
shocking. I mean, I
Right.
really like the Episcopal Church in Puerto Rico. They're very nice, but my gosh. I mean, that was like, okay, I'm really a Quaker.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah, I can't be Episcopal anymore, which I would, I love the music and the hymns, but there we are. That it's the line in the sand. Essentially, if you're a pacifist, you really have to be one, and that's the way it is.
Noam Chomsky has a saying that I go for it. I repeat it to myself sometimes, and it is, we have to act knowing the pessimism of the intellect with the optimism of our will. Even though cognitively we realize that things are harsh, and my heart goes out to the Jewish lady who is a Quaker. What is her name?
Sandy.
Becky. And my heart goes with her. Thank you for your testimony. That was great. Appreciate it. So, cognitively, she was sharing how difficult it is for her being a Jewish in this time in age, and how it is important for her to act according to her will, even though, cognitively it may be difficult. So I embrace you, Becky. I don't know if she's still there.
Yes, Sandra's still there. Yeah, that's what we have to do. We have to go to the understanding that we're all human, and that's the issue. Well, anything else? Any last words? Anyone else? Have we?
Sandra, if you feel overwhelmed, winter is a great time to visit Puerto Rico. So you're more than welcome to visit us here.
Good for you.
And by the way, you can tell me how to become a Quaker, because I didn't know that you could become a Quaker. I honestly don't know a lot about almost anything about Quakers. So,
Well, okay, we have to start a Quaker meeting in Puerto Rico when I come back. Hopefully I'll be back in a few weeks, but
that will be great.
See. That would be wonderful. It would be wonderful to have a Quaker meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. You can visit our blog. We are in many virtual platforms, and our blog is www.madrescontralaguerra.blogspot.com, or you can also call me at 787-619-5175, and we're willing to embrace you as well.
Well, thank you very much. We'll stop recording now.
Okay.